Hey friends, welcome back to Heartscapes, where we are practicing the system of Reiki to live lives that are rooted, spacious, connected, and that help us to remember ourselves. My name is Michaela. Welcome back to the studio. I wanted to jump in today because I had a experience yesterday that really has stayed with me. It was just a simple moment inside of a circle that I was facilitating, and it's just really I don't know, it really kind of catalyzed something that I often speak to, but just kind of brought some really beautiful language and concepts around. And that concept is the way in which practicing the system of Reiki and other similar practices has a particular outcome that I have come to value so very much. And the way that I describe that is that this practice helps us to make more space inside to hold all of the complexity, all of the contradiction, all of the way too big feelings and experiences that we often are confronted with when we're moving through really challenging times, overwhelming times, times of big decisions, of transitions, times of grief, even times of great happiness and excitement that feel like they could overwhelm us, that might feel like they are shutting down our nervous system. There are so many moments in life where the bigness of life, the overwhelming nature of what we are experiencing, what we're confronted with, what we have to decide, what we have to choose to do, the courage that it is requiring of us can feel like it is simply too much. There is not enough space inside of this one little tiny body and this one little tiny mind and heart and this one tiny life to hold all of it. Oh, can you relate? Have you ever had an experience like that where you felt that you were going to burst with the bigness of it all? And if there's a word that I would say I consistently use to describe those experiences, it is discomfort. Discomfort that can tip into pain if it gets too intense. And we are, on the one hand, highly capable of navigating discomfort, of being with discomfort, of moving it through our system, and also just persevering in the face of discomfort or pain. At the same time, particularly in modern Western culture, we are also highly comfort seeking. We are very oriented towards seeking comfort. Now, there is a whole rant about capitalism that is inherent in part of that. We are absolutely guided by media and advertisements and the desire to receive our money and our engagement, that tells us that we deserve to be comfortable and to an excess at all times. And if only we could buy the next thing, we would be more comfortable. We would be more able to avoid discomfort. And this kind of hyper fixation on comfort seeking that is absolutely fueled by commerce, by advertising, feeds into what is already just naturally present, which is, of course, we would like to avoid pain and discomfort, right? We again, we have the capacity to be with it, but we obviously do want to minimize it and avoid it. And be in a life that feels free of pain and discomfort. All of that can feel true at the same time. And that can create this really confusing mix of experiences when we confront the natural, normal, and beneficial discomfort that comes with growth, change, transformation, and healing. Let me say that again. We cannot experience deep levels of change, transition, healing without some discomfort, maybe a lot of discomfort. And so, if we're in this conflict between that reality, that in order to grow more of our own self, to gain capacity, to expand our ability to be a full person in the world, do difficult things, make challenging decisions, grow and change and learn, which is something most of us have an instinct to do. We're going to be required to do just based on life. But at the same time, we've become highly averse to discomfort and comfort seeking. And we have been told by society that we deserve to be comfortable at all times. We have a problem. We have a disconnection inside of ourselves. We have a dissonance that can cause its own form of suffering. If we look at that through a Buddhist lens, which is a significant part of the foundation of the system of Reiki, we see this distinction between pain and suffering. Pain or discomfort or dissatisfaction being a natural part of life, of being a vulnerable body in a complex world, a vulnerable heart and mind in a complex world. Pain, discomfort, discontent, inevitable. Part of life. Not inherently bad, depending on the circumstance, right? Suffering, that persistent dissatisfaction within that tradition, is caused by our resistance to that natural pain and discomfort, our attachment to the need for comfort, our attachment for the desire for things to be different than they are in this moment. That attachment to the past, that attachment to what we want for the future, that attachment to our overwhelming desire to be comfortable, to be safe, to be cared for, causes its own form of pain and discomfort and dissatisfaction and suffering that can become so acute it takes our focus away from the healing that is trying to happen, from the change and growth that is trying to happen. We can become so fixated on the dissatisfaction and the suffering of trying to resist that discomfort that becomes the point of focus. I hope that makes sense, that distinction between those two. I'm feeling like I'm rambling a little bit here, but I don't know, I'm worked up about it. So I talk about this a lot because I see so much dis-ease in my life, in the life of people I know, and in society that stems from this phenomenon, from this desire to avoid discomfort. And the way in which that desire and the strategies that we use to avoid discomfort are so profoundly distracting and are often so profoundly destructive, right? I mean, we can look at all forms of coping mechanisms that, can absolutely help us get through really hard times, but then can become their own form of suffering, right? Addictions and, distractions that we create for ourselves that take our attention away from something that might actually be trying to move and grow and change inside of us. I know I have spent way, way, way too much time in my life dedicating my attention to my own distraction from discomfort because I wasn't able to deal with it. And one of the most profound benefits that practicing the system of Reiki continuously gives me is the ability to make more space inside so that discomfort isn't so concentrated. It's not so acute. I'm not so contracted around it, right? Which makes it all the more uncomfortable, creating more space inside for contradiction, for things that seem, to be opposites that are both true at the same time. Oftentimes that plays into interpersonal conflict when I have my perspective that I believe is right and they have their perspective that they believe is right and they are different from each other. How often do we get into painful conflict with people that we care about when that is true? The ability to hold that both of those perspectives could be true at the same time and are true at the same time has been profoundly healing in my life. And it has changed my relationships. It's changed how I feel. It's made me overall, ironically, it's made me overall more comfortable, right? Because I'm processing that discomfort, I'm being with it in the moment. So why am I talking about all of this? I mentioned a facilitation yesterday. I've had the great honor of facilitating a group for the last, going on 3 years of Reiki practitioners focused on the experience of grief, of loss, of death, and of Reiki. And we look at things like, what is the responsibility and the capacity of Reiki practitioners to um, help facilitate spaces around grief, around loss and death. And of course, we hold space for each other to process our own griefs, to acknowledge them, to be with them, to work with the precepts in a way that helps us to understand grief and to really, transform the perspective that we as individuals and then the communities that we are a part of have with relationship to death and to loss in ways that have been really, really profound. And so we were meeting yesterday, and I usually begin with a poem, often a poem from Pixi Lighthorse, who is somebody that I have shared on this channel a number of times, usually through my Reiki Storytime video series, which I guess this is going to be a hybrid version of, because Pixi often just articulates things so profoundly and perfectly. And so I often will pick one of her poems from her Prayers of Honoring series. So specifically Prayers for Honoring Grief, which is one of her books. And I'll usually just pick one either at random or through some sort of bibliomancy process, almost like pulling an oracle card. It's always exactly the right one. And the one that I picked for the meeting yesterday just really so beautifully spoke to the importance of this dynamic of creating space inside to hold things that feel opposite, to hold space for discomfort, to deconstrict, right? To become bigger around those things so that it is less acute and we're more able to stay in the process, to stay in whatever it is. In this case, speaking specifically about grief, grief is one of those things that absolutely spirals us into discomfort avoidance, right? I mean, grief is one of the most painful, uncomfortable, persistent experiences that we have. And unfortunately, our society does not deal with grief well at all, or loss or death. So much shame can be developed around the experience of grief, so much avoidance, so much misunderstanding of what is actually happening. And in that, so much missed opportunity for incredible, deep, profound healing, profound self-knowledge, profound capacity building, growth, literal just getting bigger as a person in the internal sense, in the energetic sense, in the emotional sense, in the mental sense, making more room in our mind, in our heart, letting our heart get bigger. So much potential inside of the experience of grief. Grief is a powerful teacher, a powerful healer in our life, but my God, does it require incredible capacity to be with discomfort. Just so difficult, right? So I have so much compassion for all of us because we have all dealt with grief in one way or another. And, when I really think about the single most important capacity that I have to be in a well grieving process and to support others to grieve well, it is this capacity to make more space around discomfort. And the system of Reiki gives that to me and gives that to the people that I know and that I work with. It gives us practices and structures to help us to do exactly that and make so many other things possible in our life when we have cultivated that one capacity. So I'm going to share this prayer with you in just a moment. I want to just read it out to you because, again, Pixi articulates these things so beautifully and so with such incredible imagery that really can touch our heart. And first, I just want to invite you into this conversation. I'd love to be in conversation with you about your own experiences of discomfort, of navigating discomfort, of getting bigger around it, or maybe those really tender moments when we feel like we're contracting around whatever it is that's causing us pain. And the reality, the difficult reality that contraction just causes more pain. I really want to talk about this because it's life-changing, it's world-changing. When I think about the conversations that can't happen or that happen so badly in society around deeply entrenched social pains and injustices, conversations about racism, about misogyny, about transphobia, about classism, about war, about conflicts of so many kinds. If we think about some of the conflicts that are going on in the world and then in our personal lives and our individual communities, how many of them have the quality of there being two perspectives on the situation that are so in opposition, and yet both sides think they are absolutely right? Could it be possible that both are absolutely right? But we haven't made enough space for both of those perspectives, and then to have the difficult conversations that might have a chance of reconciling those seemingly opposite views. I have seen it happen. I've seen the possibility of reconciling what seem like irreconcilable differences of opinion. It absolutely is possible. At the very least, it's possible to be in peaceful conflict around these kinds of differences. What a difference that would make in the world if more and more of us, dare I say all of us, had this capacity to make space for the discomfort of those opposite views, of deconstricting around needing to be right and rejecting what we see as wrong. Oh my God, I could go on a tangent. I better stop. That could absolutely take us all day. Let me focus here. Friends, practice the system of Reiki. Talk to me about practicing the system of Reiki. You want this in your life. Share with me your own experiences with them. I'm so curious about what has come up for you as I'm rambling. I'm absolutely rambling through this topic. And if you want to dive deeper into this capacity building, there's two really lovely ways that I am offering coming up that you can do that. One is an in-person retreat, the Souls on Deck retreat. We are going to spend 3 days just really, really, really in a very nourishing, very beautiful container, diving into building this capacity through the lens of Reiki, of soul collage, and of yoga, and with the guidance of writings from Clarissa Pinkola Estes. It's going to be a really luscious and nourishing experience. That'll be coming up in September. I'll put the link to that below. And then if you want to dive into the system of Reiki, we are starting our next series of classes in October, and you can either take classes as standalone classes, or you can join our 9-month program where we take a deep dive through the entire system of Reiki with lots of support, lots of spaciousness, just lots and lots of goodness and deepness and customization to meet your needs and your goals. I would love to have conversation with you about either of those opportunities. And so in the description down below, I'll put links to those offerings, and also a link for scheduling a conversation if you'd like to talk about either of them anymore. Okay. Shameless plugs aside, I want to end by sharing this prayer with you from Pixi Lighthorse's book, Prayers for Honoring Grief. And this one, which again I chose quite at random yesterday during our session, is called Honoring Yearning. And it is from the section of the book that is devoted to the season of summer. Her books are organized seasonally, and we are about to enter the season of summer, so that is why I chose that section. Okay, So as I read this, I just invite you to, open yourself to what is most for you about this reading, and to notice some of the themes that we've been talking about in this video. See how they land for you. Honoring yearning. Thank you for this day of piercing desire for things to be different. Teach me to be with what actually is. Help me to accept that my appetite to move beyond it is my body's way of writhing through the discomfort of difficulty. Help me to realize that I will get there if I meet my present grief and those that lie underneath it. Help me to honor the intrinsic function that is helping me slowly begin to understand the depth of my suffering and its power over me. Help me comprehend that craving is my teacher. Show me the child inside of me who was not filled in the way that I needed to be. Help me to be free of obligation to my trauma, and put me on the road of giving myself care in the way that I need most. Show me that I can count on myself now. Nurture my heart, my womb, and my broken body. Lay the hands of your light on my discontentedness. Fill me up with the beauty of each moment of presence. Even when my cup seems to overflow with sadness, let me hold it all. Balance my longing for tears with my longing for laughter. Make room for both of them inside of me. Let me work with you until I am absolutely certain that it will not always be this way. And then let's continue our collaboration. Help me to transform my belief that my destiny is to feel empty and distraught. Remind me to make meaning of my world by being meaningful in the world, by sharing my song of misfortune with others and punctuating it with what has helped me the most. Teach me to be satisfied with the quality of my real emotions. When light and dark live inside me in equal measure, neither will consume me. When light and dark live inside me in equal measure, neither will consume me. And that, friends, is where the system of Reiki brings us, to this space of non-duality, where we hold light and dark within us in equal measure and are consumed by neither of them, but simply are present with everything that is in a way that feels spacious, that feels rooted, that feels connected, and that feels like we've finally remembered our true selves. So friends, let's journey there together. It's a delight to be in this practice with myself and with all of you. Drop any questions, any reflections, what stood out to you from that reading, from this rant, in the comments down below. And as you move throughout your day, as you move through all of your moments of holding too much, may you be deeply provisioned to hold all of it. Thank you so much. Until next time, I love you. Goodbye.